For organizations, and now employees expect to be treated as internal customers. The rise of individual employee needs will have much further to run in 2023. What has been people-centric will now become person-centric. Rather, it has already become person-centric. Only those businesses that can go the extra mile in providing a genuine and heartfelt commitment to their people in this way will generate the emotional reaction necessary to enable a high-performance culture, therefore improving the overall organizational efficiency and effectiveness. To have this conversation, I would like to invite Billy, Regional Director, APAC, Top Employers Institute, onto the dais. He will be moderating this session. Billy, can I have you on the dais, please? I'm glad to welcome our panel members. Shweta Mohanty Roy, Vice President, Human Resources, SAP India. Thanks, Shweta, for joining us today. Amrita Das, Senior Vice President and Head of HR, APAC Growth Markets, HCL Tech. Thank you, Amrita, for joining us today. Sailesh Menenzes, Vice President and Head of Human Resources, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, India. Thanks, Sailesh. Billy, all over to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, all the panel members, and hope all of you enjoy this session. Thank you.
Just want to check, am I audible? Yes. We've got a full room, which is great. And my first question is actually to the audience. Who's winning this year's Cricket World Cup? I think they said South Africa. No? India. I agree. Hey? They're playing Australia today. We're not doing too bad for once. Okay, I better move from this topic very quickly. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to be your moderator for today's panel. My name is Billy Elliott. I'm proud to serve as the Regional Director for the Top Employers Institute Asia Pacific, based in Singapore. Obviously, India is very, very close to my heart and a country that I visit quite frequently. Obviously, to spend time with our fantastic clients. And for those of you who don't know who the Top Employers Institute are, we're a global HR certification and insights provider. So we certify organizations based on their HR practices, and we help them improve their HR practices to obviously further strengthen the overall employee experience. So that's what we do on a global scale. And through our program, together with our top employers, we positively impact the lives of over 9.5 million employees with the world-class HR practices that these organizations are putting in place for their people. I'm joined by three fantastic HR leaders who need no introduction, pretty well known in India and throughout the APAC region. Shweta Mohanty Roy, Vice President Human Resources at SAP India. Amrita Das, Senior Vice President and Head of HR APAC Growth Markets, HCL Tech. And of course, last but not least, Sailesh Menezes, Senior Director, Head of HR Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Warm welcome to the three of you, and thank you very much for participating and taking busy time out of your schedule to be here. So as the lovely MC mentioned, we do see ultra-personalization of HR practices becoming very, very prominent in the HR space. The term people-centric is already a thing of the past, and we've now moved towards something called person-centric. People are embracing individuality, and employees want to be treated as individuals and not as a sort of mass number in a big organization. So a one-size-fits-all approach is no longer fit for purpose. And as we know, employees now view themselves as internal customers, which makes life even more difficult for the HR function. And where we see personalization taking place is largely in the flexible work-life balance space. It's happening in compensation and benefits, employee well-being, career development. So it's happening in all the different areas of HR. So after my rather short but sweet introduction, I think it's time to hear from our HR experts, just to get a better understanding around how their world-class human-centric organizations are actually personalizing the experience for their people. And my first question is to Shweta. So how has SAP modified its salary and benefits in today's personalized era And how do you ensure employees feel their compensation is unique to their contributions in the organization?
Thank you so much, Billy. And it's such a pleasure to be with this esteemed panel, but also in front of all of you. When we look at, the topic of personalization, I think the field of total rewards is one where we are seeing significant shifts in the last few years. For us in SAP, that has always been the North Star. We are always looking at the needs of our diverse and evolving workforce. And it's very, very important to keep in mind what are their aspirations and make your compensation or total reward strategy, as per that. There are a lot of things I could talk about, but if I have to really talk about the two trends that we are seeing and how we are adapting in the organization around it, one aspect which is really resonating very well with our employees, and I hear, when through top employers, when we were sharing our best practices, we saw a lot of resonance also with, with other employers, is this entire aspect of transparency. And when I talk about transparency, we have embarked in the organization on a journey where we have already executed salary transparency. We are also kind of going ahead now talking about benefits transparency and going on further to equity transparency. So what it essentially means is that every employee in SAP is able to go and see in the job family that he or she belongs to, in the range, salary range for that particular job family, where is he or she positioned. Now, this is something in an Indian context is really, very, very progressive, because compensation is a very sensitive topic people generally do not talk about. And there are various reasons, starting from equity to where the person would have come from, the kind of organizations he or she would have belonged to. It really has, a lot of parameters which goes in making compensation still a very taboo topic to be, spoken, openly about. In that kind of a scenario, in a country like India, we have taken this step to make every employee be able to see where they are in the range, in the salary range. And we believe we executed this last year. It has almost been, 2 years that we have been on salary transparency, and we have seen a fundamental shift in the culture in the organization. Employees feel empowered to go and have conversations with their leaders about, where they belong, how they can grow, what is the kind of development opportunities they need to, further get progress to the next level. And those kind of things have a really profound impact on our culture. So that's just one element. We are now moving on to benefits transparency, where we are giving a full view about what each person individually is able to realize through benefits in the organization, and furthermore moving to equity transparency. The holistic transparency is a great, way in which we are, kind of moving on. The second aspect, if I talk about, is really personalization, and this is something that we take it, extremely seriously. Obviously, it starts with, benefits. I think many organizations are already into the flexible benefits piece. We also, kind of launched through tech, a kind of a app, which we are calling Employee Navigator, where through simple clicks, every employee in the organization is able to see all the benefits, the leaves he or she has. And we are really empowering our employees to, own that part. They are able to personally see what they have, what they can do. These are just few things that we are doing. We are also now taking it in terms of, realizing that in the life cycle of an employee, at different stages, the needs are very different. And we are kind of, bringing in policies, practices, so that it's completely personalized. So right from starting from, for example, a family care leave, to a sabbatical leave, to really giving opportunities for them to get higher studies. Depending upon where they are, there is a benefit, to meet their, requirements there. And those are some of the ways in which we are personalizing. Of course, as a part of our compensation review, there is not a standard thing that we do. There is a lot of importance given to each job family, how they are growing, what is the need in the organization, and to be able to, move in a very different pace as compared to others. All these are aspects in which we hope, and we get the feedback from our employees that they feel it's not like one, brush stroke that we are, giving in terms of our practices, our policies, our benefits. Everything is based on who you are, what stage of life and career you are in, and how is the organization helping you, whether it is in terms of learning, whether it is in terms of career growth, whether it is in terms of development. So those are some of the things, just in a nutshell, to see how we are moving ahead in this journey, Bill.
And I think we all know that in terms of the employee engagement surveys that we all run in our organizations, comp and ben always tends to be one of the lower performing areas.
Absolutely.
With the shift and the change towards more transparency, have you seen a positive rise?
We have, and I'll be honest here in this audience. This journey has not been easy. That's why I've qualified right up front in the beginning that people did have their concerns, because obviously especially the leaders and the managers now nothing the leverage about telling a story to their employees is now has to be backed by data, right? And that's a very difficult task. But I'm really happy and proud to see that after a few months of enablement with our leaders, with our employees, we have seen an absolute positive turn. Employees do feel empowered. Managers really have open conversations with them. They tell them why you are here, why your compa ratios is probably lower, why you are, why you will take probably a bit longer. Those conversations are now in open domain. Nothing is hidden. And herein you give the confidence to the employee that, you can come and ask questions about how can I move faster? What are the things that you're doing? Otherwise, compensation discussions, I'm sure all of you would agree, used to be largely about, somebody being either unhappy or happy about a certain number. Right now, we have moved in, from there to a culture where people are really having positive, progressive conversations about not only where they are in terms of compensation, but what they can do to grow and, move ahead. So that has been a very positive change.
Thank you for sharing. I'd like to bring Amrita into the discussion. So through one of our HR auditors, who you know quite well, I've recently learned that HCL Tech has employed sentiment analysis to enhance and personalize its employee experience. So could you elaborate on how you've done this and share some insights with the audience?
Thank you, Billy. And a very good afternoon to all of you. I'm so glad to be here sharing some of these experiences. Billy already alluded in terms of how are we personalizing our engagement initiatives. And it is not about, all of us do a lot of engagement work, which is around whether you're celebrating family, celebrating passion clubs, celebrating events, right? But the important today is data, right? How do you understand that, what is needed for which group, especially with a multi-generational workforce, where you're employing Gen Zs and their needs, their requirements are very different. If you look at, there are a lot of open forums through which we collect data, which is appraisal farms, which is employee satisfaction surveys, process checkpoints, right? But think about a scenario where in terms of how is somebody or an employee feeling at that point of time, in terms of his emotions. There is no scientific, there are a lot of platforms, I would be wrong saying that, but there is no scientific way of deciphering this data and understanding that what is bothering which workforce, which group. We started this journey in a very modest manner. We started this by listening. We call it employee listening. And this was a very modest approach of looking at in terms of how can we look at various touch points, digital touch points of our people, and what are they feeling, how are they expressing that feeling to convert to a fair amount of data for different businesses. We went by this whole journey for us is called sentiment analysis, and it is backed by the machine learning and the NLP, which is the natural language processor. This model was built primarily based on last 4-year data. With almost a large organization like ours, we've analyzed more than 5 lakh records, if I have to tell you a number from that perspective. The model basically, what it does is it kind of reads through the appraisal forms and some of these footprints which I mentioned and extracts the data in terms of the emotion felt by an employee at one point of time. And this is huge amount of data. We kind of used, the model is called the weather lexicon. I mean, you can Google it. It is basically the analysis, the way in which the sentiments can be read. We looked at that data and used that data to understand the sentiments in terms of how they are positive, very positive, negative, somewhat negative. So both polarity and in terms of how they are feeling. This data was then tested on more than 160,000 sample records, because we had to test the accuracy in terms of how it is kind of spanning out. And we are very glad to mention that today the accuracy stands in terms of more than 90% on sentiments. And on terms of, what are the topics, what are the areas of concern, and that kind of amounts to almost 95%. So that's a huge success in terms of the way we wanted to start planning our interventions in employee group. This data is now drilled down at a business level, business unit level, region level, country level, and it is given to all the HR partners, access is to all the business heads. And what it helps you to actually understand that where is the sentiment, what is the sentiment, which topic is what is hurting people, and which cohort are you wanting to look at, right? It gives the leadership level a trend, basically a year-on-year trend in terms of how your people feeling, right? It gives them that, okay, if you've applied some intervention, has it worked for that set of population or not? So I think it has come up, we are still in process. We've started this last 2 years, and we are seeing a good amount of traction in terms of the way we are planning our interventions for every. If I just take an example of Asia Pacific, which I manage, the data clearly showed that our sentiments were low in 22 as compared to 21. And we kind of deep dived and said, okay, which are the areas, which cohorts are we looking at it? And some of these trends will not be very different what you see in your conversation on day to day. But when you see data in front of you, I think it just gives you a little more comfort that your interventions have to be planned that way. We clearly saw that there was dip in sentiment in terms of new hires who were coming on boarded, right, as compared to the tenured population. We saw that people getting hired outside India were feeling less integrated, or feeling, I would say, the sentiment quotient was a little lesser as compared to somebody who's based out of India and other offshore locations. We saw that some of our women, came out and said that, they felt that their career, their progressions, and some of the discussions around their flexibility and work was one of the concerning thoughts they had, put that out in open. We took those as a cue, and we worked around in terms of looking at what programs should we deploy, and go back and review, and then look at the result probably next year again. For example, we've looked at our entire new hire integration, and we said, okay, what we are doing today with COVID, everybody moved to a world where everything was virtual. Probably that was not enough now, given that a lot of us are coming back. So we went back to the floor and started seeing that how can we bring those touch points more. We looked at our people who are hired outside India. What is not comfortable them? What is hurting them? Probably we're not bringing more of them back to the headquarters here, show them Noida campus, Chennai campus, or more interaction with business leaders, which they are not feeling very welcomed about. So we worked on that aspect. So I think this is just an example. Most of the businesses today are using that data to, in fact, look at our attrition analysis, look at attrition data for future forward, look at those comments to read up and see how we can mature that analysis for our future intervention. This is a quarterly update for us, and it comes out as a dashboard to all of us in a platform, which is very, very useful for all of us. So that has been our journey on analyzing the sentiment analysis for our people.
Phenomenal practice.
Thank you, Willie.
Pleasure. It's ironic that you mentioned machine learning tools, because that's actually links to my next question with Salesh. Can you shed some light around HPE's machine learning tools and how you've used that for your career development programs, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Billy, and thank you, SHRM, for having me here. It's truly an honor for me to be speaking to all of you, and we learn mutually. It's not about just a unidirectional learning here. So what HP does, and let me just be very clear here, I work for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. I do not work for HP Inc. I'm often confused with the manufacturer of PCs and print. We do not do that. We are an enterprise company. And what we do, especially when we speak about career development, and career development is one aspect of our technology journey using machine learning to hyper-personalize experiences. We do it right from we hire a person to the point a person exits the organization. But I wanted to focus more on the whole career development aspect. Career development to me consists of two parts. One is the actual development part, which is the learning. The second are the experiences, which include the opportunities as well. So the first thing we actually did was, if you just throw out there for our employees a series of learnings and say pick and choose, nothing comes out of it, to be very honest. So we went a step further, and using technology, using machine learning, we were able to create learning journeys. And the learning journeys are not just about what they're doing today, it's about what they aspire to do tomorrow. So your learning journeys can be things to do with leadership, managerial, technology, multiple different learning journeys. And each of these journeys are tracked. You have certifications, you have coursework, very intense but very personalized to that specific individual. One learning journey is not the same of maybe another colleague's learning journey. It can look very, very different. Where we get this information is multiple sources. It can be through the whole career development framework that we use, through the people leaders, through the 360-degree feedback, multiple sources to help us in creating this. So that's on the learning piece. What we also did was we took the whole personalization further on the experiences part. So there are 3 or 4 key aspects of experiences that we introduced. The first was definitely around new career roles through the internal job posting process. So what we did was, again, we do not have a list of jobs and say, search for it and just take it. It doesn't work that way. So the first thing we did was say, yes, if you're interested, all you have to do is flag yourself as ready to move. We don't expect you to spend 3 years, 2 years in a role. The minute you think you're ready to move, it's fine. The minute you choose that option that you're ready to move, the system matches you across the roles that are available within the organization, across hundreds, maybe thousands of roles, and comes down to the top 3 or 4 that the system believes using machine learning would be the best fit for you, based on your aspiration, based on your skills. And somebody from the talent acquisition team actually reaches out to you and coaches you on it. So that's the level of personalization we have done on this. It's just not a series of jobs that you apply to. We have taken it further to mentoring. We have taken it further to networking and to gigs. So we have an internal concept of gigs, which is a gigs marketplace for internal talent. So if anybody is interested in evaluating options of doing a gig project for 3 months while they continue in their current role, they have the option there. Again, you don't have to look at 300, 400 gig projects open. You specifically state your preference, or your preference is pulled out from the various factors I spoke about. The system matches you with the top 2 or 3 gigs that you, or the system believes, and that HP believes that you will do well in that. Similar with networking, with mentorship. I'm not going to go through each of these, but it's very, very personalized to the person. So we've changed the whole experience from saying, go and spend 3 hours looking at 100 jobs and confuse yourself, to saying, we will reach out to you, we know what you need. It gets refined over time, yes. The accuracy is quite high, but you keep refining these processes and systems. Again, AI and machine learning tools are basically how well you input it at the end of the day. But we've been able to really take personalization to levels that we've never seen in the past. This is probably 2 years in the making already, which has borne significant fruit here.
I think one thing you can't underestimate is the importance that digitalization plays in helping to personalize the employee experience, right? It's been critical for you guys.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You cannot do this, through Excel spreadsheets and all. You need to use machine learning. You need to use the digitalization has to be at the cutting edge of technology in terms of being able to extract. It's basically data management. It's about algorithms within data management to pull out, what really works best for each individual.
Super. Thank you for sharing. Shifting the focus towards employee well-being, Shweta, I'm bringing you into the conversation again. As we know, organizations have to have a holistic employee well-being strategy now that covers physical, emotional, financial, emotional. That's the aspect my wife says I need to work on the most, ironically. So I'll be signing myself up for that program. So how has SAP's Total Rewards addressed employee wellness in the organization? Because that is very, very personal, right?
It's a very personal and something which touches the heart and souls of employees. I'm not sure if any one of you in the room were there when Akshay, in the main hall was talking about, and he said a very very pertinent point that for the longest period of time, I think organizations have been talking about illness, while defining, the practices which will be associated with employee health and well-being rather than wellness. And which is so true, right? Because whether it is you start from your sick leaves to you start with your insurance benefits, each one of them have been really designed to make sure that when you fall sick is when, the organization steps in. I think we are moving very, very fast away from that kind of a belief. As an organization, we do believe that every employee who falls sick, and I'm not getting into the numbers, but you can all yourself, kind of calculate for every man day where the person is not there. It's obviously a huge impact on the efficiency and productivity of the individual, but also from an organization's perspective as well. And then what can you do to really be proactive and personalize, in that whole aspect? So in SAP, of course, the physical well-being, the mind-body, equilibrium, we are talking about resilience, we are talking about, how we can help our employees to really focus on wellness. So we are a very kind of employee wellness-focused organization for a longest period of time. If you come certain months, to our campus in Bangalore, you would see there is a fitness challenge running. Middle of the day, people are actually running. We make them compete with each other. There is a whole lot of enthusiasm around it. We have a lot of experts who come in around that. But one of the area that we had really been struggling is how to take a step back and be proactive, in our approach on well-being. And there are few things that we have done. I'm pretty sure all of you have the wellness checks or health checkups for your employees. For us, also every employee, spouse, family is covered in a health checkup in a year. But we realized that data is something that we have never been used. You know there are certain section of people who are at high risk or at a medium risk, but you are really not doing anything. You're literally waiting for them to actually fall sick. That is when your interventions or your help or your aid comes into the picture. So we are just embarking into into an initiative where we are looking at those high risk and medium risk employees based on the health checkups that we have encouraged them to do, and then nudging them to take help of the right kind of interventions, whether it is employing a personalized dietitian for them, whether it is a health coach who can really for the next few months, whether it is weight management, whether it is hypertension, whether it is diabetes, whether it is any comorbidities that they may have, looking into that and having a very personalized approach for that. Of course, you don't have 10 or 20% of your employees who are comorbid, but even if there are 5% of your employees who are benefiting out of this, there is a huge thing. So that's what we are trying to do on the physical well-being. Another initiative which is on similar lines is an initiative that we have just launched and is very, very well received, is something that we call as Project Yellow Circle. Yellow stands for the bright things of life, and Circle is a community, and this is very, very specifically around mental well-being. So again, using technology, using SAP's own technology, as well as sentiment analysis that Amrita was mentioning, we are encouraging our employees when they come into the office, there is a small smiley with some emojis put in to really be, for that 1 second, be aware on how they are feeling. Right? And that is a reminder for them to be aware about, the right emotions that they are, having. So if in a particular 3 consecutive days, I come in and click on it and I say that actually I'm not feeling well, that's a trigger for our employees to take help. And the help is not always, the EAP counselors, whether we like it or not, mental well-being, people do think they'll go to a counselor when things are really broken. Right? We felt that there is a need for us for an employee, resource group, or allies as what we call them, who can just listen in. Because many times what you're going mentally, is you need somebody to just, get and vent it out to. So we have now a set of, 30, 40 allies who are actually our employees who have taken the oath of confidentiality. We are really training them in the right listening, techniques, and they are the ones, where an employee can go and connect through technology. So there is an app, you go and say, here is what I'm feeling, I need somebody to talk to. It connects you to an ally who will set up a time with you that day. You sit with a cup of coffee, and under maybe a tree, or go out for a walk with an ally and talk it out. And we do not realize the power of that stepping back and trying to be proactive in health and well-being, which is so much influential to our to our employees, and has had such tremendous impact. So the entire journey for us is really to move our well-being. Obviously it is a priority, is also to kind of move one step back and helping employees being a little more aware about their physical, their mental wellness, and of course anything that is required for them to do that. We do encourage our employees to take off. So we have a joke which is there, that you do not call in when you are just sick. Please do call in when you are sad. It's important, if you are there a particular day you are not feeling up to, you are not asked to come to, office that day, take time off, maybe go take a walk, relax a little bit, maybe in a few hours you will feel better. So those are cultural elements which needs to be reinforced, not only just by the HR organization. These are cultural elements which need to be reinforced by the managers, by the leadership, by the entire organization. So I think wellness really needs to have this expanded outlook. And I must tell you, there's a lot more that needs to be done. We have just made baby steps around it. But, we are really looking at each and every practice and policy of ours from that well-being picture. So whether it is, return back to office post-COVID, I'm sure a lot of you are juggling with that challenge as well. Whether it is, physical well-being, whether it is resilience, whether it is having one-on-one coaches, health coaches, all these are aspects in which we are hoping our employees, benefit out of it and truly be, healthy and, embrace well-being, which is so, so important in today's day and age.
All about being proactive and not reactive, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. We've got 4 minutes left, so one more question each. If you can keep it to 2 minutes, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble with SHRM. Rita, my last question to you is, can you talk about the personalization of internal job matching that you've done at HCL Tech? Because I know that's also one of your leading practices.
Absolutely, Billy. I think Shailesh did mention about how we go about it. Primarily, it is nothing new as a concept. I mean, every organization, or all of you would be doing IGPs. We call it internal job postings. But in a large organizations, the problem statement at our end was, at one end, we had some thousands of people who were getting, getting relief from the projects and coming on bench, right? They are doing skilling, they're doing learning programs. And on the other side, we are hiring people. Last year, just to a number, we hired like some 40,000 headcount across the globe. Now, one of the input which came from sentiment analysis, which I was speaking, is lack of opportunities to grow internally. I think, and that's come out in Gallup, that's come out in our internal studies. And we were just trying to understand that while we have a robust mechanism of IGP, people do apply, but something is not working well, was something bothering a lot of us. We went on to a journey where we wanted to kind of look at, again, a digital platform backed by AI to see that how we can bring that opportunity to an individual right at the click. I mean, today, somebody has to, as he rightly said, has to scan through multiple opportunities, see what is fitting me, and then go and apply for it. We call this platform called Talent Exchange, and in true sense, exchange, because people can move across boundaries, across countries, across projects, across businesses. And we were very, very open that let me start with people who are on bench for us. They are already being skilled on multiple technologies. It will be open. They will have a profile which they enter in this platform, and they're all data in terms of their experience, skills, performance, ratings, everything. It comes out on the screen. the platform kind of matches the job internally and throws up 4 or 5 options to me as a person. So Amrita, there are 4 jobs which you can choose from because it matches your skill. Obviously, one has to go through the hiring process, talk to the hiring manager, but the other, it can't be done just on the tool. So there were policies to be done at the back of it. Things like, it's no more dependent on your tenure, your rating, or your manager doesn't want you to release because in a critical structure, we said there is a cutoff. After 18 months, you will have an opportunity to rotate across projects. People have to get ready to release these people if somebody comes to ask for an opportunity. We've been fairly successful. I think we will vouch for it, especially this year being a difficult year for IT services. I'm sure you all are aware. It really helped us. I mean, today, if I look at Asia Pacific, our internal fulfillment rates are hovering around 80-85%. It is a win-win for both as a tech company, as an employee. It is win-win in terms of managing the cost for the business because your internal talent gets rotated, and as well as it helps us manage retention because it's like a free market. I mean, today somebody goes from HCL and applies in a job in SAP. I'm not going to ask, right? I'm not going to stop the person. But within the organization, if somebody is applying a job from one business unit to another, there are 100 approvals to be taken in the place because that person is moving within the organization. We've kind of removed all these barriers, and we've said that, okay, these are your 4 jobs, please go and apply. And added to it, I think I'm not going to take time on that, we've brought learning journeys on top of it to say that, okay, if you want to take this job, hey, there is some short course you can actually prep up in the meanwhile. Additionally, there are mentoring programs where we attach a mentor as well. You can go, again, an AI-enabled platform where you can go and choose a mentor based on the skill you want to apply for. So these are some of the interventions we have planned in this space, and it is true engagement because more than events, what is helping us, these are the factors which are helping us to feel more belonging in terms of an organization, and people see a lot of opportunities internally to grow. So it's worked really well for us at this point of time.
Thank you for sharing. My final question to Sailesh. Now, we all know that HR leaders love their HR metrics, and that's probably no different for you. So can you share some of the sort of metrics that you use or you have in place to measure the success of your personalized career development initiatives at HPE?
Yeah, sure. How much time do I have? 20 seconds?
I think you've got...
Okay, no, I'm just kidding on that. So there are a few things that we do, and I'll be very quick. Just 4 or 5 things that we actually do to really measure ourselves. The first thing is, of course, a metric that we take very seriously is, and which comes right down from the board, from the CEO onwards, is the talent that we can fill internally. And that really goes back to that first part about learning journeys and how do we actually fill talent internally. The reason we do that is because, as I was sharing with Billy earlier today, HP has an average employee tenure of 6.5 years, in spite of hiring thousands every year. So the average is 6.5 years, which means that on an average, everyone spends 6.5 years at least in the organization, which means that you have to plan their careers. It's not about 2 years they move to some other organization. So it becomes so critical to do it, and that's one metric that we measure very, very religiously because that is a metric that talks about not just giving them opportunities, but getting them ready for skills of the future. I didn't speak a lot about skills, but that's a whole new topic that we can speak maybe at the next SHRM conference. The second part of it is, of course, our surveys. We continuously do dipstick surveys, pulse surveys by team members themselves, from their managers. We get a lot of data through our workforce surveys on how effective each one is in roles, how do they perceive themselves. The third, I think, would definitely be an area where we actually receive feedback through the system. We look at performance feedback in new roles. New roles 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. How has feedback changed over that point of time? So there's no one size fits all when it comes to feedback and measurements here. It's multiple micro points of feedback that we collect across the system and then put it together to have a broader picture. Because, when it comes to HR, especially when it comes to people, it's not as tangible as, say, financial metrics. People metrics are a little more complex. You have to look at a lot that is unseen to really be able to drive value through that.
I would love to continue to pick the brains of these three HR geniuses, but unfortunately, we are done. We hope you derive good value from the panel discussion. I certainly learned a lot listening to the three of you, and many thanks for sharing your world-class HR best practices with me and the wider audience. And we obviously really appreciate the great role that you three play as HR leaders in creating a better world of work for your people. So thank you very, very much. Can we give them a round of applause?
Thank you so much.
Cool.
Shweta, Amrita, Sailesh, and Billy. Wonderful insights. I think it has been 30 minutes of, I would say, very insightful conversation, and what are the latest trends in your respective organizations. Thank you so much for this, right from transparency in communication levels to understanding emotions of employees to having personalized solutions to them, to digitization of the career processes. I think this is all what we have heard. Thank you so much. On behalf of SHRM, I would like to request Deepak Rao to come and hand over a memento to our speakers, please.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Very, very kind of you. Thank you. So wonderful.
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you so much. We will start off with our next session, please, in the next couple of minutes. Thank you, Billy.